Amara Okonkwo stood at the window of her beautiful Victoria Island home in Lagos, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Her house was big and pretty, with shiny floors and fancy furniture. From the outside, people thought Amara had everything a woman could want. She was married to Amara Okonkwo, one of the most important bankers in Nigeria. They had 2 children who went to the best school in Lagos. They had 3 housekeepers who kept everything perfect. But inside, Amara felt empty and alone, like a bird in a golden cage. Amara was called the quiet woman by their friends and neighbors. She rarely spoke at parties. She nodded and smiled when people talked to her. Many thought she was just shy. Others thought she was proud. But nobody knew the truth, that Amara's silence was not a choice, but a prison she lived in. Every morning, Amara would wake up early to make sure the housekeepers prepared Amika's breakfast exactly how he liked it. His coffee had to have 1 spoon of sugar, not more, not less. His eggs needed to be cooked just right. If anything was wrong, Emeka would throw the plate across the room. 7 years of marriage, and you still can't get it right, he would shout. Amara would clean up the mess quietly, her hands shaking. Today was their wedding anniversary, 7 years. Amara had spent hours getting ready, wearing the green dress Emeka had bought her. He liked her to look perfect when they went out. Any small mistake in how she looked would make him angry later when they were alone. The doorbell rang. It was Lola, Amara's only real friend. Lola was bright and loud, the opposite of Amara. She wore colorful clothes and laughed a lot. Sometimes Amara wondered how they became friends, but she was thankful for Lola. "Happy anniversary, darling," Lola sang, giving Amara a big hug and a small gift box. "Open it!" Inside was a pretty silver bracelet with a tiny bird charm. "It's beautiful," Amara whispered, touching the bird gently. "I saw it and thought of you," Lola said, then lowered her voice. "How are things?" "Really?" Amara looked away. "Fine. Everything is fine." Lola frowned. She didn't believe Amara, but she knew better than to push. "Emeka taking you somewhere nice tonight?" Amara nodded. "Le Petit, the French restaurant." "Fancy. Well, you look gorgeous. That green makes your eyes shine." After Lola left, Amara put the bracelet in her jewelry box instead of wearing it. Emeka didn't like when she wore jewelry he hadn't chosen. The last time she wore earrings her mother gave her, Emeka had pulled them from her ears, leaving tiny spots of blood on her lobes. At exactly 7 p.m., Emeka came home. He was tall and handsome in his expensive suit. Anyone looking at him would see a successful, charming man. He smiled when he saw Amara. "You look acceptable," he said, which was as close to a compliment as he gave these days. At the restaurant, they sat across from each other, Emeka ordering for both of them without asking what Amara wanted. The waiter smiled at them. "What a beautiful couple," he said. "Special occasion." "Anniversary," Emeka answered proudly, reaching for Amara's hand. His touch was gentle now, in public. "7 wonderful years with my silent angel." Amara smiled the smile she had practiced in the mirror. Not too big, not too small. Just perfect, just empty. On Monday morning, a moving truck appeared at the house next door. The Obalolu family had moved to America, and the house had been empty for months. Amara watched from her kitchen window as furniture was carried inside. Then she saw him, a tall man, directing the movers. He wore simple jeans and a t-shirt, very different from the fancy clothes men in Victoria Island usually wore. He had kind eyes and a smile that appeared easily. When he noticed Amara watching, he waved. Surprised, she waved back before stepping away from the window. Later that afternoon, while Emeka was at work and the children at school, the doorbell rang. Amara opened it to find the new neighbor, holding a small plant in a pot. "Hello," he said with a warm smile. "I'm Dr. Chidi Bakari. I just moved in next door." "Amara Okonkwo," she said softly. "Welcome to the neighborhood." "Thank you." "This is a peace lily," he said, offering the plant. "A small housewarming gift to myself that I'm sharing with you." Amara took it carefully. That's very kind. I'm a psychiatrist at Lagos University Teaching Hospital, he explained. New position. Do you work nearby as well? Amara shook her head. I'm just a housewife. Dr. Bakar looked at her with interested eyes. There's no just about creating and maintaining a home. That's important work. Something about the way he said it made Amara stand a little straighter. No one had ever spoken about her life at home, as if it mattered. Would you like to come in for tea? She asked, surprising herself. They sat in the living room, and for the first time in years, Amara found herself talking. Dr. Bakare was easy to talk to. He asked questions and really listened to her answers. He told her about growing up in Enugu, about his work helping people with their problems. Most people just need someone to really hear them, he said, to see them as they truly are. When he left an hour later, Amara felt lighter somehow. She placed the peace lily on the kitchen windowsill, where she would see it every morning. That evening, Emeka noticed the plant. What's this? He asked, frowning. A gift from the new neighbor, Amara explained. He's a doctor at LUTH. Emeka's face darkened. You accepted a gift from a strange man? He's our neighbor. The slap came quickly, making her stumble back against the counter. Did you invite him in? Did you shame me in my own house? No, Emeka, it was just... Get rid of it, he snapped. Now. Amara took the plant, her hands trembling, but instead of throwing it away, she hid it in the small garden shed, where she kept her few treasures, a book of poems her father gave her, photos of her parents, and now, the peace lily. Later that night, after Emeka had fallen asleep, Amara touched her cheek where a bruise was forming. She would need extra makeup tomorrow. She was good at hiding bruises now. She knew exactly which foundation covered which colors. 2 weeks passed. Amara watered her hidden peace lily every day. It became a small act of defiance, a tiny freedom. She saw Dr. Bakari a few times, waving from across the fence. His smile always seemed to ask if she was okay. She always nodded yes, even when it wasn't true. On Friday, Amara's daughter Zara came home from school crying. She was 9 years old, with bright eyes and a curious mind. What's wrong, love? Amara asked, kneeling beside her. Mrs. Ademola said my science project was the best in class, Zara sniffled. She wants me to enter the national competition. Amara was confused. But that's wonderful news. Why are you crying? Because Daddy won't let me, Zara said. Remember when I wanted to join the math club? He said girls should focus on being proper ladies, not showing off. Amara felt something crack inside her. She had accepted Emeka's cruelty toward her, but seeing it start to crush her daughter's spirit was something else. Let me talk to him, she said, hugging Zara tightly. That evening, Amara prepared Emeka's favorite meal, pounded yam and egusi soup. She wore the blue dress he liked. She made sure the children were extra well behaved. When Emeka seemed in a good mood, she carefully brought up Zara's project. The science competition would look good for her university applications, Amara said softly. Many of the best families have their daughters participating. She knew mentioning what other important families did might sway him. Emeka cared very much what others thought. Emeka considered this, twirling his wedding ring. Who would take her to these meetings? I could, Amar suggested. Or we could hire a driver. And the project? It won't take too much time from her other studies. Her teacher says she's already done most of the work. She's very talented, Emeka. Pride flickered across his face. Of course she is. She's my daughter, he agreed, and Amara felt a small victory. Later, she told Zara the good news, watching joy light up her daughter's face. You did it, Mama. You convinced him. Zara hugged her tightly. How did you do it? Amara stroked her daughter's hair. Sometimes you have to be smart about how you ask for things. That night, as Amara lay awake beside Emeka, she realized something important. She had become expert at managing Emeka's moods, at finding safe ways to exist in his shadow. But was this what she wanted to teach her daughter? To be small and quiet, to please a man? The thought made her stomach hurt. The next morning, Amara took the children to the park. Her son Dio, who was 6, loved the swings. As the children played, Amara sat on a bench, watching them. She didn't notice Dr. Bakare until he spoke. "They are wonderful children," he said, sitting beside her. "They look like you." Amara smiled. "Thank you. Zara has her father's determination, though." "And what did they get from you?" he asked gently. Amara paused, unsure how to answer. What had she given her children? Fear? Caution? "I'm not sure," she admitted. Dr. Bakar noticed the fading bruise on her cheek, poorly hidden by makeup. His eyes filled with concern, but he didn't mention it directly. "How is the peace lily doing?" he asked instead. "It's fine," she said quickly. "It's safe." He seemed to understand what she wasn't saying. Plants are stronger than they look. Even after being hurt, they can grow again if given the chance. Their conversation was interrupted when Dio ran over, asking for ice cream. As they parted ways, Dr. Bakari handed her a small card. "If you ever need to talk," he said quietly, "about anything." Amara slipped the card into her pocket, her heart beating fast. When they got home, Emeka was waiting, his face like thunder. Someone had seen Amara talking to Dr. Bakar and had called Emeka. "Making a fool of me in public," he shouted after sending the children to their rooms. "We were just talking." His fist connected with her stomach, knocking the wind from her. As she gasped for breath, he grabbed her hair. "You are my wife," he hissed. "Everything you have is because of me. Without me, you're nothing." That night was one of the worst. When Emeka finally fell asleep, Amara crept to the bathroom, her body aching. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Her lip was split, her eye swelling, but worse was the emptiness in her eyes. She had become a ghost. Slowly, she took Dr. Bakari's card from her pocket and stared at the number. Her hands shook as she reached for her hidden phone, the one Emeka didn't know about, the one Lola had given her just in case. Dr. Bakar answered on the second ring. When Amara couldn't speak, just breathing into the phone, he seemed to understand. "Amara, are you safe right now?" "Yes," she whispered. "He's asleep." "Do you need medical help?" "No, I don't know why I called." "Because you needed to," he said simply. "That's reason enough." They talked for an hour, Amara sitting on the cold bathroom floor, speaking so softly sometimes she could barely hear herself. Dr. Bakar mostly listened, occasionally asking gentle questions. By the end, Amara had told him things she'd never told anyone, about the first time Emeka hit her, just 1 month after their wedding, about how he controlled their money, her friendships, what she wore. "What you're describing is abuse, Amara," Dr. Bakar said finally. "It's not your fault. And you don't have to live this way." "I can't leave," she said. "The children deserve to grow up in a home without violence," he finished, "as do you." Before they hung up, he told her about a women's support group that met at the hospital, just to talk. No pressure to do anything. The next day, Amara told Emeka she was joining a book club. Surprisingly, he agreed, probably because several bankers' wives were in book clubs, and he liked Amara doing acceptable activities. The support group wasn't what Amara expected. The women weren't sad or broken. They were strong, some angry, some hopeful. They came from different backgrounds. Rich women like Amara, middle-class women, even a few who struggled for money, but they all shared similar stories. The group leader was a woman named Funmi, with grey-streaked hair and fierce eyes. "The first step is the hardest," Funmi told Amara after her first meeting. "Just coming here shows courage." Week by week, Amara found her voice in that room. She learned that what was happening to her had a name: domestic violence. She learned about financial abuse, emotional abuse, terms that gave shapes to her shadowy existence. She met a woman named Blessing, who had left her abusive husband 2 years ago. "How did you do it?" Amara asked her one day. "One small step at a time." Blessing said, "I started putting aside a little money. I made copies of important documents. I found people I could trust." Amara began doing the same. She skimmed small amounts from the household money, hiding it in her garden shed. She took pictures of their marriage certificate, the children's birth certificates, Emeka's property papers. She started keeping a diary of the abuse, dating each incident, each bruise. At home, she was still the perfect, quiet wife, but inside, she was changing, growing stronger like her peace lily, which now had a new white flower. One day, Lola came to visit, bringing pastries from Amara's favorite bakery. "You seem different," Lola said, studying Amara's face. "There's something in your eyes that wasn't there before." Amara hesitated, then decided to trust her oldest friend. "I've been going to a support group for women in difficult marriages." Lola's eyes widened. "Oh, Amara, I knew things weren't good, but I didn't know how to help." "You can help now," Amara said, explaining her growing plan to leave. Lola squeezed her hand. "Whatever you need. My home is your home." By the third month of attending the group, Amara had saved nearly 500,000 naira, had copies of all important documents, and had packed an emergency bag hidden in the garden shed. She had memorized Funmi's phone number and Dr. Bakara's. She had told the children's school that only she or Lola should pick them up, citing a vague family situation. She was almost ready. But then everything changed in one terrible night. Emeka came home drunk, which was unusual. He preferred control, and alcohol made him sloppy. But he'd lost a big client that day and had been drinking with colleagues. The children were already asleep. Amar was reading in the living room when he stumbled in, his tie loose, eyes bloodshot. "Get me a drink," he slurred. Amara went to the kitchen to get water, hoping to avoid giving him more alcohol. But Emeka followed, grabbing a whiskey bottle. "I saw you," he said suddenly, pouring a large drink. "Saw me where?" Amara asked, her heart racing. "At the hospital," coming out of a room with a bunch of women. He took a long swallow. "So I asked around. You know what they call that room? The abuse victims' meeting place." Amara froze. "You've been telling strangers our private business?" Emeka's voice was dangerously quiet now. "Making me look bad." "No, liar." He threw his glass against the wall, shattering it. "You think I'm stupid? You think I don't see what you're doing?" He came toward her, and Amara backed up until she hit the counter. His hand closed around her throat. "Without me, you're nothing," he snarled. "The children are mine. The house is mine. You leave with nothing but the clothes on your back. Understand?" "Please," Amara gasped, clawing at his hand. "Emeka, you're hurting me. Daddy, stop." Zara stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with terror. Emeka immediately let go of Amara, who collapsed to her knees, coughing. "Go back to bed, Zara," Emeka said, his voice suddenly gentle. "Daddy and Mommy are just talking." But Zara didn't move. "You were hurting her." "No, sweetheart." Mommy fell, and I was helping her up. "Right, Amara?" Amara looked at her daughter's face, so young, so afraid, and something inside her finally broke. "No," she said, her voice hoarse. "That's not what happened, Zara. Your father was hurting me, and that's wrong." Emeka's face darkened. "Get to your room now, Zara. Run to Dr. Bakar's house," Amara told her daughter. "Go now." Zara hesitated only a second before running out the front door. Emeka lunged to stop her, but Amara grabbed his arm. "Don't touch her," she said, finding strength she didn't know she had. Emeka turned on her with fury, but before he could strike, the front door burst open. Dr. Bakare stood there, with Zara behind him, his phone in his hand. "The police are on their way," he said calmly. "Zara, stay outside." Emeka laughed. "This is my house. You're trespassing." "I heard a child screaming for help," Dr. Bakare said. "I have a duty to respond." Emeka looked from Dr. Bakar to Amara, seeming to calculate his options. Then he straightened his shirt. "This is a misunderstanding," he said smoothly. "A private family matter." "Hurting people isn't private," Dr. Bakar replied. "It's a crime." In the distance, police sirens wailed. Emeka's face contorted with rage. "You'll regret this," he told Amara. All of you will. When the police arrived, Amara told them everything, showing them her bruises, old and new. They took Emeka away, struggling and shouting threats. Neighbors came out to watch, some shocked, others seemingly unsurprised. Amara hugged her children close, both now awake and frightened. It's going to be okay, she promised them. We're going to be okay. But even as she said it, she wondered if it was true. The days after Emeka's arrest were a blur. Amara and the children stayed with Lola, whose husband Joshua was kind and gave them space. Emeka was released on bail the next day, as Amara knew he would be. He was too important, had too many connections. He couldn't come near Amara or the children because of a court order, but he could make their lives difficult in other ways. He froze their joint bank accounts. He sent his lawyer to demand the children be returned to their proper home. He says I've kidnapped them, Amara told Funmi during an emergency meeting. It's a common tactic, Funmi explained, but you've done nothing wrong. The children are safer with you. The support group rallied around her. One woman, a lawyer named Bisi, offered to represent Amara for free. We need to file for divorce immediately, Bisi advised, and get formal custody arrangements. Amara hesitated. Divorce is so final. Do you want to go back to him? Funmi asked gently. Amara thought of the years of fear, of walking on eggshells, of hiding bruises. She thought of Zara's face when she saw her father choking her mother. No, she said firmly. Never. The divorce papers were filed the next day. Emeka's response was swift and vicious. He told everyone who would listen that Amara was mentally unstable, that she was having an affair with Dr. Bakars, that she was an unfit mother. Some people believed him. Amara lost friends she'd had for years. People at the children's school whispered when she dropped them off, but others stood by her. Lola never wavered. Dr. Bakare checked on them regularly, bringing groceries, offering medical advice when Dio got a fever, just being there. One evening, as they sat on Lola's veranda, while the children played inside, Dr. Bakare, who had asked her to call him Chidi, brought up something difficult. The court date is next week, he said. Are you prepared? Amara nodded. Bisi has coached me, but Emeka will have the best lawyers and many character witnesses, Chidi added. People are afraid to go against him. I know. Amara looked at her hands. I might lose. You won't, Chidi said firmly. The truth is on your side. And you're stronger than you know. Amara looked at him, this man who had become such an important part of her life in just a few months. Why are you helping me? Really? Chidi was quiet for a moment. My sister was in a marriage like yours. She didn't get out in time. His eyes grew sad. I couldn't save her, but when I saw you that first day, something in your eyes reminded me of her. I promised myself I would at least try to help, if I could. Amara reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. I'm sorry about your sister, and I'm thankful for you. The night before the court date, Amara couldn't sleep. She went to Lola's kitchen for tea and found Joshua there, also unable to sleep. Big day tomorrow, he said, putting the kettle on. Amara nodded. I'm scared. That's normal, Joshua assured her. But you know what? I've seen you these past weeks. You're not the same woman who arrived here shaking and afraid. You're finding your voice. I don't feel very brave, Amara admitted. Brave doesn't mean not afraid, Joshua said, handing her tea. It means doing what's right even when you're terrified. The next morning, Amara dressed carefully in a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back neatly. She wanted to look respectable, but not like she was trying too hard. Lola helped with the children, getting them ready for school, promising to pick them up after. At the courthouse, Emeka was already there with 3 lawyers and several prominent business people as character witnesses. He looked handsome and confident in an expensive suit. When he saw Amara, he smirked as if victory was certain. Bisi met Amara at the steps. Ready? Amara took a deep breath. Ready. The courtroom was intimidating with its high ceilings and stern-faced judge. Emeka's lawyers spoke first, painting a picture of Amara as unstable and manipulative. turning the children against their loving father due to her jealousy of his success. When it was Amara's turn to speak, her legs felt like water as she walked to the stand. Looking out, she saw Emeka's cold eyes, but she also saw Chidi, Funmi, Lola, and other women from the support group, people who believed in her. "Mrs. Okonkwo," the judge said, "please tell the court why you're seeking divorce and full custody of your children." Amara's voice was shaky at first, but grew stronger as she spoke. She told the truth, all of it. The first slap, the escalating violence, the control over every aspect of her life. She described specific incidents, dates, injuries. She explained how she'd hidden it all, ashamed and afraid. "Why didn't you report this abuse earlier?" Emeka's lawyer asked during cross-examination, his voice suggesting disbelief. "Because I was afraid," Amara said simply. "Afraid of losing my children. Afraid of having nowhere to go. Afraid he would kill me if I tried to leave. These are common fears for women in abusive marriages." The lawyer smirked. "And yet you found courage when a handsome doctor moved in next door." Convenient timing. Amara didn't rise to the bait. "I found courage when my 9-year-old daughter saw her father choking her mother. I found courage because I didn't want my children to think that's what love looks like." As the hearing continued, Bissy presented evidence, photos of Amara's injuries over the years, the diary she'd kept, testimony from Dr. Bakar about what he witnessed, and most damaging, a surprise witness, Halima, the Okonkwo's longtime housekeeper, took the stand nervously. "Mr. Okonkwo told us we would lose our jobs if we ever spoke about what happened in the house," she explained. "But I cannot be silent anymore. I have seen him hurt Madame many times over 7 years. I have helped her hide bruises, clean blood from clothes." Emeka's face grew dark with rage. This he hadn't expected. By the end of the day, the judge had heard enough. He granted Amara a temporary protection order, temporary full custody of the children, and ordered Emeka to pay support while the divorce proceeded. It wasn't over. There would be more hearings, but it was a beginning. Outside the courthouse, Emeka brushed past Amara. "This isn't finished," he murmured. "You'll never be free of me." But for the first time, Amara wasn't afraid of his threats. She watched him walk away, realizing he seemed smaller somehow. That evening, Amara, the children, and their supporters had a small celebration at Lola's house. There was jollof rice, fried plantains, and even cake. The children seemed lighter, laughing more freely than they had in months. "What happens now?" Zara asked as Amara tucked her in. "We find a new home," Amara said. "We build a new life. Without Daddy," Amara chose her words carefully, "your father will always be your father. But he made choices that weren't safe for us. Until he changes those choices, we need to live separately." Zara thought about this. "Will you be sad?" Amara smiled, stroking her daughter's hair. "Sometimes. But mostly I think we'll be happy. A different kind of happy." Over the next few months, Amara rebuilt her life piece by piece. She found a small apartment in Surulere, not as grand as their Victoria Island home, but cozy and safe. She got a job at a friend's boutique, using her eye for fashion that Emeka had always belittled. The divorce proceedings dragged on, with Emeka fighting every step. He used his connections to delay hearings, to challenge custody arrangements. But each time, Amara stood firm, supported by her growing circle of friends and the women's group. One rainy afternoon, as Amara was closing the boutique, Chidi appeared at the door with an umbrella. "Thought you might need this," he said with his warm smile. They walked together, sharing the umbrella, talking about their days. These walks had become regular, a friendship growing naturally into something more, though neither had named it yet. "The children ask about you," Amara said. "Dio wants to know when you'll come teach him more chess moves." "Anytime," Chidi replied. "I miss them too." They reached Amara's apartment building and paused at the entrance. The rain created a private curtain around them. "Amara," Chidi said seriously, "I want you to know that I understand you're still healing, still finding yourself. I don't want to rush anything." Amara looked at him, this gentle man who had helped save her. I know who I am now, she said. I'm not the quiet woman anymore. I have a voice, and it's getting stronger every day. I know, he said, his eyes warm. That's who I'm falling in love with. The words hung between them, honest and undemanding. Amara felt a flutter in her heart, not the fear she'd known with Emeka, but something light and hopeful. I'm not ready for anything serious, she said truthfully, but I'd like to see where this goes. Slowly. Chidi smiled. Slowly sounds perfect. 6 months after leaving Emeka, Amara received news that changed everything. Emeka had been arrested for attacking his new girlfriend. The woman had gone straight to the police, and this time, given his history with Amara, they took it seriously. With Emeka facing criminal charges, his fight against the divorce weakened. His bank put him on leave. His social standing crumbled. And suddenly, many of his supporters disappeared. The divorce was finalized on a bright Tuesday morning. Amara walked out of the courthouse, feeling like she could finally breathe fully. She had sole custody of the children, with Emeka granted supervised visitation only after completing anger management classes. She received fair financial support and part ownership of their home, which would be sold. How do you feel? Funmi asked, walking beside her. Free, Amara said, the word tasting sweet on her tongue. That weekend, Amara held a small gathering at her apartment. The women from her support group came, along with Lola and Joshua and Chidi. They ate and laughed, and toward the end, Funmi presented Amara with a gift, a beautiful journal, with her name embossed on the cover. For your new story, Funmi explained. The old one is finished. Later, after everyone had left except Chidi, who was helping clean up, Amara found herself standing on her small balcony, looking at the Lagos skyline. So much had changed in a year. Penny for your thoughts, Chidi said, joining her. I was thinking about who I used to be, Amara replied. The quiet woman who thought she deserved what was happening to her, who thought staying silent was the same as being strong. And who are you now? He asked. Amara smiled. I'm still discovering that, but I know I'm someone who speaks truth, even when it's hard. Someone who shows her children what real strength looks like. Chidi touched her hand gently. I think you're remarkable. Inside, Zara called out that Dio was messing with her science project, and they both laughed at the normal chaos of family life. I should go referee, Amara said, but before she went inside, she stood on tiptoe and kissed Chidi lightly. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. The next morning, Amara woke early. The children were still asleep, the apartment quiet. She made herself tea and sat at her small desk by the window. Opening Funmi's gift, she looked at the blank pages waiting to be filled. She began to write. My name is Amara. For 7 years, I was known as the quiet woman, the silent wife. This is the story of how I found my voice. 3 years passed. Amara's boutique job had turned into managing the store, and eventually, with a small loan and her savings, opening her own place, Amara's Designs. Selling clothes she created herself, her simple, elegant styles became popular among working women in Lagos. The children thrived in their new life. Zara, now 12, had won 2 science competitions and wanted to be an engineer. Dio, 9, was passionate about art and football, filling the apartment with colorful drawings. Chidi and Amara's relationship had grown slowly, thoughtfully. He understood her need for independence, for finding herself outside of any relationship. They enjoyed quiet dinners, family outings with the children, long talks about everything and nothing. He never pushed, never demanded, just offered love that expected nothing in return. Emeka had served 6 months in prison for assaulting his girlfriend. Upon release, he had moved to Abuja, rarely contacting the children, despite having the right to supervise visits. Sometimes, he sent expensive gifts, which Amara accepted with mixed feelings. She wanted the children to know their father loved them, even if he couldn't show it properly. On a warm Saturday, Amara's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Mrs. Okonkwo, a woman's voice asked. Yes, though I use my maiden name now. Amara Nwosu, she corrected gently. This is Nurse Yuwande from Lagos General Hospital. Emeka Okonkwo has been in an accident. He's asking for you." Amara's heart raced. "How serious is it?" "It's quite serious," Nurse Yuwande replied. "He was in a car accident. Multiple injuries, internal bleeding. The doctors have stabilized him, but—" Her voice trailed off. Amara sat down, her legs suddenly weak. Despite everything, Emeka was still her children's father. "I understand. I'll come right away." After arranging for Lola to watch the children, Amara drove to the hospital, her mind a whirlwind of confused emotions. She hadn't seen Emeka in over 2 years. Their only contact had been through lawyers and occasional terse text messages about the children. At the hospital, she found Emeka in a private room, his body connected to various machines. He looked smaller somehow, vulnerable in the hospital gown. His face was bruised, one arm in a cast. When he saw her, surprise flickered across his face. "You came," he said, his voice raspy. Amara stood at a safe distance. "The children would want me to." Emeka closed his eyes briefly. "How are they?" "They are well. Zara won another science competition. Dio is playing football now." A nurse came in to check Emeka's vitals, giving Amara a moment to collect herself. When they were alone again, Emeka spoke. "The doctors say I'll recover, but it'll take time." He hesitated. "I've been seeing a therapist in Abuja. For my anger, for everything." Amara wasn't sure how to respond to this. Was it another manipulation? But something in his eyes seemed different, less prideful, more reflective. "That's good," she said finally. "I've had a lot of time to think," Emeka continued, "about what I did to you, to our family." He looked at the ceiling. "I was a monster." Amara had imagined this moment many times, Emeka admitting his wrongs, but now that it was happening, she felt strangely empty. No triumph, no vindication. "Yes, you were," she said simply. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "I just wanted to tell you that you were right to leave, to take the children. You saved them." His voice broke. "And yourself." Amara stood there, watching this man who had once been the center of her world, who had made her life both heaven and hell. She felt the weight of their history, the early love, the gradual descent into abuse, the fear, the escape, the rebuilding. "I hope your therapy helps you heal, Emeka," she said finally. "The children deserve a father who is healthy, who can love them properly." Emeka nodded, a tear sliding down his cheek. "I want to try, to be better for them." As Amara prepared to leave, Emeka called her name once more. "Amara, you look good, strong. I can see it in your eyes." She paused at the door. "I am strong. I always was. I just didn't know it then." 2 months after Emeka's accident, Amara stood in her small garden, planting new flowers. Her apartment had a tiny patch of land behind it. Nothing like the grand garden at the Victoria Island house, but it was hers, and she had filled it with colorful blooms and herbs. The peace lily from Dr. Bakari had grown large and had been divided into several plants. They reminded her of her journey, how something broken could multiply and thrive. Zara came out, holding a letter. "Mom, Dad sent this for you." Amara wiped her hands on her gardening apron before taking it. Inside was a formal letter requesting a revision to their visitation agreement. Emeka was asking for unsupervised visits, presenting evidence of his completed therapy, letters from his psychiatrist, and character references from his new colleagues in Abuja. "What does it mean?" Zara asked, watching her mother's face. Amara chose her words carefully. "Your father wants to spend more time with you and Dio." "Without supervisors." Zara frowned. "Do we have to?" "No," Amara assured her. "Nothing happens without your agreement. And mine." Later that evening, after the children were in bed, Amara called Chidi. Over the years, he had become her closest confidant, her partner in all but name. "What do you think?" she asked after explaining Emeka's request. "I think you should trust your instincts," Chidi replied. "You know him better than anyone. Do you believe he's changed?" Amara considered this. "I think he wants to. But change takes time, especially for someone like Emeka. He defined himself by power and control for so long. The children's safety comes first, Chidi reminded her. Always, Amara agreed. But they also need their father, if he can be the right kind of father now. After much thought, Amara proposed a compromise, gradually increasing visits, starting with longer supervised sessions, then brief unsupervised outings, building toward the regular visits Emeka wanted. Her lawyer called it the ladder approach. Surprisingly, Emeka accepted without argument, something the old Emeka would never have done. The first extended visit was at a restaurant near Amara's home. She watched from a distance as Emeka sat with Zara and Dio, obviously trying hard to connect with them. He didn't bring lavish gifts as he once might have, just books he thought they'd enjoy. He listened more than he spoke. When Dio spilled his drink, Emeka didn't scold him, just helped clean up. It was strange seeing this version of Emeka, humbled, careful, trying. Amara wasn't sure she would ever fully trust him, but she could acknowledge his efforts. As spring turned to summer, Amara's business thrived. She hired 2 assistants to help with the sewing and a manager to run the shop when she needed family time. Women across Lagos sought out her designs, which were elegant but practical, beautiful but comfortable, clothes that made women feel both professional and feminine. One of her regular customers, Mrs. Adetolo, came in looking for an outfit for a charity gala. "Your designs have changed my wardrobe," she told Amara. "My husband always chose my clothes before, always too tight, too revealing. Now I dress for myself." Amara smiled, recognizing the journey in the woman's words. "That's exactly why I create these clothes, for women to feel like themselves." "You should expand," Mrs. Adetola suggested. "Open a second shop. Maybe even create a line for young girls, teaching them early about dressing with dignity." The idea took root in Amara's mind. A clothing line for girls like Zara. Not childish, not too grown up, but respectful of their emerging sense of self. That evening, she sketched designs while Chidi cooked dinner. The children were with Emeka for their first overnight visit, and the apartment felt strangely quiet. "You're worried," Chidi observed, noticing her distraction. "A little," Amara admitted. "It's their first night away from me since we left." "They have your strength in them," Chidi reminded her. "And your phone is on if they need you." Amara put down her pencil. "When did you become so wise?" Chidi laughed. "I've always been wise. It's part of my charm." After dinner, they walked along the waterfront, hands linked loosely. The Lagos night was warm, the air smelling of salt and distant cooking fires. Street vendors called out their wares. Couples strolled. Music drifted from restaurants. "I love this city," Amara said suddenly. "Even after everything, I love being part of it." "It's in your blood," Chidi agreed. "The chaos, the energy, the life." They stopped at a small bench overlooking the water. In the distance, lights from boats twinkled like earthbound stars. Chidi seemed nervous suddenly, fidgeting with something in his pocket. "I've been thinking," he began, "about us, about the future." Amara turned to him, seeing the seriousness in his eyes. "We've taken things slowly," he continued, "given you time to heal, to find yourself again. I've loved watching you grow stronger, seeing you build this new life." He took a small box from his pocket, and Amara's heart quickened. "This isn't a traditional proposal," he said. "I'm not asking you to be my wife in the old sense, to belong to me, to serve me. I'm asking if you'll consider building a partnership with me, equal, respectful, loving." He opened the box to reveal a simple ring with a small emerald. "Green for growth," he explained, "for new beginnings." Amara looked at the ring, then at Chidi's hopeful face. This man who had never tried to control her, who had supported her journey without demanding anything in return, who loved her children as his own. "I need to ask Zara and Dio first," she said. "Their lives have changed so much already." Chidi nodded. "Of course, family decisions should include everyone." Amara touched the ring lightly. "But my answer, if they approve, would be yes." His smile lit up his entire face, and when he kissed her, Amara felt nothing but joy and peace, a far cry from the anxious, fearful kisses she had once known. When the children returned from Emeka's the next day, they seemed thoughtful, but not upset. Emeka had taken them to a movie, made them dinner, helped with homework. Nothing extravagant, just normal family time. It was okay, Zara said when Amara asked. He's different now, quieter. He didn't get angry even once, Dio added, sounding surprised. That evening, Amara sat them down for a family meeting. Chidi has asked if he can become a more permanent part of our family, she explained carefully. If you both agree, we would get married, and he would live here with us. The children exchanged glances. Would he be our new dad? Dio asked. No one can replace your father, Amara said firmly. Chidi would be like a bonus parent, another adult who loves you and helps care for you. Zara, always the more thoughtful one, asked, Does he make you happy, Mom? Really happy. Amara smiled. Yes, he makes me feel safe, respected, and valued. That's important, Zara said seriously. That's what love should be. So you both would be okay with this? Amara pressed. Dio nodded enthusiastically. He promised to teach me how to play the guitar. Zara took longer to respond, but finally said, I think it would be good, for all of us. The wedding was small and joyful, held in the garden of Lola and Joshua's home. Amara wore a dress of her own design, simple cream linen with delicate embroidery around the neck and sleeves. Zara was her maid of honor, proudly wearing a matching smaller dress. The guest list included the women from Amara's support group, now close friends, colleagues from her shop, Chidi's family from Enugu, and a few neighbors who had become part of their extended family. Mama Funmi, now using a cane but still fierce-eyed, sat in a place of honor. To everyone's surprise, Emeka had sent flowers with a simple card, wishing you happiness. After the ceremony, as guests enjoyed jollof rice and palm wine, Chidi found Amara watching Dio play football with the other children. Happy? He asked, slipping an arm around her waist. More than I ever thought possible, she replied honestly. Their honeymoon was a weekend, at a small resort outside Lagos. They didn't want to be away from the children for long. When they returned, Chidi moved his things into Amara's apartment. It was a bit crowded with 4 people, but they made it work, converting part of the living room into a small office where Chidi could write his research papers. Life settled into a new routine. Mornings were busy with breakfast and school preparations. Evenings were for homework, dinner, family games. Weekends included visits with Emeka, who continued his careful rebuilding of relationships with his children. Amara's business expanded, as Mrs. Adetola had suggested. She opened a second shop in Victoria Island, a triumphant return to the neighborhood where she had once lived as a silent, frightened woman. Now she returned as a successful businesswoman, signing the lease with her own name. The children's clothing line, called Zara's Choice after her daughter, was especially successful. Mothers appreciated the age-appropriate designs that allowed girls to look nice without looking too grown up. One afternoon, Amara was working late at the Victoria Island shop when a familiar face appeared. Halima, her former housekeeper. Madam Amara, Halima exclaimed. It is really you. They embraced warmly. Halima looked well, less tired than Amara remembered. I work for a family nearby now, Halima explained. Much better people. The husband is kind. The wife treats me like a sister. I'm so glad, Amara said sincerely. And thank you, Halima. Your testimony at the court made a big difference. Halima ducked her head modestly. I only told the truth. Sometimes that's the bravest thing we can do, Amara replied. As Halima browsed the shop, Amara reflected on how many lives had been touched by her decision to speak up, to leave, not just her own and her children's, but Halima's too, and perhaps even the woman Emeka had hurt after her, who had gone straight to the police, perhaps empowered by hearing Amara's story in the news. That evening, at a community event at Zara's school, Amara found herself seated next to a woman she didn't know, a new mother at the school, recently moved from Ibadan. I'm Amara Nuosu Bakari, she introduced herself. Blessing Okadigbo, the woman replied. Your daughter is the science star, yes. My son talks about her all the time. They chatted pleasantly throughout the event. As they were leaving, Blessing hesitated, then said, I hope this isn't strange, but are you the Amara who left her abusive husband a few years ago? The case that was in the newspapers. Amara tensed slightly. She had grown used to this question, but it still made her uncomfortable. Yes, that was me. Blessing's eyes filled with tears. Your story saved my life, she said quietly. I was in a similar situation. When I read about you, about your courage, I found the strength to leave too. Amara was speechless. After a moment, she hugged Blessing tightly. I'm so glad you're safe now, she whispered. On the drive home, Amara told Chidi about meeting Blessing. You see, he said, your voice has power, not just for you, but for others. That night, after the children were asleep, Amara opened her journal, the one Funmi had given her years ago. Its pages were nearly full now, with her thoughts, fears, triumphs, and reflections. She turned to a fresh page and wrote, Today, I met a woman whose life changed because of my story. My pain had purpose. My voice had reached beyond what I could see. The quiet woman is gone forever, replaced by someone who understands that speaking truth is not just a personal freedom, but a gift to others who might be suffering in silence. We are all connected in this way. Our courage feeds another's. Our stories become lifelines. 5 years later, Amara stood on a stage at the Lagos Women's Conference, facing an audience of hundreds. At 42, she carried herself with confidence, her simple, elegant clothes, her own design of course, complementing her natural beauty. The years had added a few strands of silver to her hair, which she wore in a short natural style now. No more of the straightened looks Emeka had preferred. My journey from silence to voice wasn't quick or easy, she told the audience. For 7 years, I was the quiet woman, the perfect wife who hid bruises under makeup and tears behind smiles. I thought staying was strength. I thought enduring was love. I was wrong. The conference hall was silent, hundreds of women listening intently. Some nodded in recognition, others wiped away tears. Breaking free wasn't just about leaving a bad marriage, Amara continued. It was about finding myself again, the self I had buried to survive. It was about showing my children what healthy love looks like. It was about creating a life where my voice matters. In the front row sat Zara, now 17, and preparing for university, and Dio, 14, and nearly as tall as his sister. Beside them was Chidi, beaming with pride, and somewhat surprisingly, Emeka, who had gradually, over years of therapy and effort, earned a place in their extended family circle, not as Amara's husband, never that again, but as a father who had worked hard to become worthy of his children's love. After Amara's speech, many women lined up to speak with her, to share their own stories, to ask for advice. She listened to each one, remembering how it felt to be unheard. Later, at the small celebration dinner Chidi had arranged, Zara made a toast. To my mother, she said, raising her glass of fruit juice, who taught me what real strength looks like, who showed me that my voice matters, who built a new life when the old one became a cage. Amara blinked back tears as everyone clinked glasses. Beside her, Chidi squeezed her hand. I have an announcement, Zara continued. I've been accepted to study engineering at the University of Lagos. Cheers erupted around the table. Engineering had been Zara's dream since her first science competition victory years ago. Emeka, sitting across the table, looked genuinely proud. Your mother's determination and your own hard work, he said. A powerful combination. It had taken years, but Emeka had changed in ways Amara once thought impossible. He had rebuilt his career at a smaller bank, remarried a woman who seemed to genuinely love him, and most importantly, had learned to be a father who supported rather than controlled. The anger management therapy had given him tools to recognize and redirect his rage before it exploded. He would never be perfect, but he was trying, really trying. Their co-parenting relationship, once tense and minimal, had evolved into something resembling friendship. Not close friendship. Some bridges, once burned, can never be fully rebuilt, but a mutual respect that allowed them to share family milestones without tension. After dinner, as everyone chatted over dessert, Amara stepped out onto the restaurant's terrace for a moment alone. Lagos spread before her, lights twinkling in the darkness, car horns honking in the distance, music drifting from nearby buildings. This city, where she had known both deep pain and profound joy. Chidi joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Proud of you," he murmured against her hair. "It feels surreal sometimes," she admitted, looking back at who I was, how trapped I felt. "You saved yourself," Chidi reminded her. "I just happened to be there to witness it." Amara turned in his arms. "You were more than a witness. You were the first person who really saw me. Not as Emeka's wife, not as the children's mother, but as Amara." Inside, she could see Zara laughing with her friends, Dio showing Emeka something on his phone. Her family, not perfect, not conventional, but healed in ways she once thought impossible. The next morning, Amara woke early, as always. She made tea and carried it to her small garden, now lush and beautiful, after years of care. The peace lily had been joined by roses, hibiscus, and herbs that scented the air when she brushed against them. She sat on the small bench Chidi had built, watching the sun rise over Lagos. In a few hours, the day's busyness would begin. The shop to open, calls to make, about Zara's university preparations, Dio's football match to attend. But for now, in this quiet moment, Amara savored the peace she had found. From silence to voice, from fear to courage, from surviving to thriving. The quiet woman was gone. In her place stood Amara Nwosu Bakare, designer, mother, wife, advocate, survivor, a woman who had found her voice and used it not just to save herself, but to help others find their own strength. As the sun rose higher, Amara finished her tea and went inside to begin the day, carrying with her the knowledge that some stories, even the most painful ones, can have endings filled with light. Thanks for watching. Show some love with a like and subscribe.